We'll call to order the Watertown City Council meeting for July 19th, 2021. We will start with a prayer. Everyone please rise. Councilman Vilhauer is going to give it.
Please rise. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today with hearts full of gratitude for all the wonderful people that serve this community, serving your sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters, and we thank you for that. Now we ask for a special thought and concern for those of us that in this room tonight, that we make decisions that are pleasing to you. And all God's people said, amen.
Our finance officer, Christine Bobzine, will call the roll.
Okay. Bueller?
Here.
Danforth?
Here.
Helene? Here. Paulson?
Here.
Shetty?
Here.
Tupper? Here. Vilhauer?
Here.
Thank you.
A quorum established. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by Councilman Bueller. Seconded by Councilman Tupper. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. We'll have public comments now. Any public comments? Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. A little bit out of the ordinary, but I would like to wish a very special happy birthday today to Don Eggert. For those of you on the council that have been around for a few years, a long time with KXLG, and used to cover our meetings for KXLG. It's the 88th birthday today, so happy birthday, Don.
Happy birthday, Don. Thank you. So, thank you, Councilor. Any other public comments? Seeing none, the chair is going to take a motion to approve the agenda. However, we have a slight change. Item E, there was an amendment at the Public Works Committee meeting earlier today. And so item E will read approval of amendment to TIF number 12 development agreement with Parkside Place LLC for a total amount of $104,000 for the city's obligations toward the Parkside Place downtown development project. Just to clarify that. That will be agenda E now. So with that clarified, a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Bueller. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Nay. Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item A, second reading of ordinance number 21-31, a zoning text amendment to chapters 21.22 R4 manufactured homes, residential district, 21.26 C2 local commercial district, 21.28 C3 highway commercial district, 21.29 CL lake commercial district, 21.30 BP business park district, and 21.32 I1 light industrial district regarding the use of religious institutions. We have on the line our Community Development Manager, Stacy Bungard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, council members. I'd like to just provide a brief overview, if I could, of this particular item. This is a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance, and it is to offer equal opportunities for the location and establishment of religious institutions within the city. The Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, is RLUIPA for short, was adopted back in 2000 by the U.S. Congress, and that law is designed to protect religious institutions from unduly burdensome or discriminatory land use regulations by allowing them to be located in zoning districts with like uses. For example, if a particular zoning district allows for a like use, such as a civil or social organization, as a permitted use, a religious institution shall also be included as a permitted use. Staff noticed this upon a request from an applicant for some zoning information, and so we have went through the zoning ordinance. We've developed a list of like uses, including civic and social organizations, clubs, and recreational facilities, among a few others, and we have attempted to place them appropriately within the zoning districts. The Plan Commission did recommend approval unanimously back at their meeting on June 24th. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to talk upon this item? Seeing none, we'll close public testimony, open it up for council questions. Questions from the council. Councilman Danforth.
We currently have a restriction on the location of businesses that have alcoholic licenses as it relates to their location to religious establishments. Is that correct? I believe it's 300 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, I
How
believe
will this
so.
affect that as we've had issues with that where religious organizations, establishments establish themselves into territories that are originally the area established for retail or commercial or whatever, and then it restricts us in some manners in regards to placing businesses there that those areas were intended for, which at times incorporates alcohol into their part of their sale. Is this affecting that at all? Is this
I'm
Manager
going to
Bunkard?
let Matt Roby speak to that. I believe that we're not doing anything with the C1, and I believe there's language already in the C1 district that precludes looking at that amendment, but I'm going to rely on Matt to help me out with that question, please.
City Attorney Roby, would you like to comment on this?
Thank you, Mayor. There is an exception in the ordinance regarding those churches, schools, Boys and Girls Club, et cetera, if they locate in the C1 or C3. So that the 300-foot rule is true with the exception of businesses that locate of those protected establishments if they locate in the C1 or C3. So, for example, the downtown district that has there's a couple of churches in the downtown district that doesn't preclude alcoholic beverage establishments from locating near those protected businesses because of the C1 and C3 zone.
Thank you. Any
would
further?
that be true? Any of these, for like example, the Sea Lake? Wouldn't we run into the same problem with some of these other districts?
Potentially. So currently, the only exceptions to the 300-foot rule are the C1 and C3 zone.
Councilman Danforth, you okay with?
Well, it seems like what we should be doing then is go ahead and pass this as is, but it should get looked at, because if the logic is the C1 and C3, and when we also have other commercial areas, like I'll use the Lake District as an example, whether that's probable or not is another thing, but it would look like we should look at where does that logically apply beyond C1 and C3. Because you could certainly see other places where there could be alcohol that may be involved in other areas that would be allowed, might be a special exception, but you may have some type of religious organization go to those areas.
Yeah, that could definitely be looked at. So you're saying you'd be interested in having that, in getting rid of the exception altogether?
Well,
Or getting rid of the 300-foot rule altogether?
I'm saying we established certain zones for certain purposes. And one of those purposes is bars, restaurants, anything that and is one of those uses for the sale of alcohol. And then we get restricted when a religious organization, church, whatever, moves into one of those districts. Now we've taken a district or a zone that's established for that purpose, and something moves in and then precludes those other things from developing, which I think is wrong.
Okay.
I think there's areas that should be, if they want to move in there, they know what the rules are, and that means they could have a neighbor that is a restaurant that sells alcohol. Now, maybe there's other areas where we say that's just not going to happen, but I'm not sure that C1 and C3 are the only ones that rule should not apply, because I think that's what you said. It does not apply in those two areas.
Correct.
You're saying that you may find that there's something else where it should not apply.
Okay. Yeah.
And we should probably take a look at that and see where it logically is. The first one that comes to mind would be the lake.
Okay.
So.
Noted. Thank you.
Councilman Shoddy.
Thank you, Mayor. This question would be for Attorney Roby. As the Executive Director of Access Ministry, would it be wise for me to recuse myself of this particular decision and vote?
This particular action, I would say no. It's not. I can't, just off the cuff here, I can't see how it would affect you positively or negatively financially. So that would be the first test. So I would say that you can go ahead and vote on this, unless your fellow council members feel otherwise.
Thank you.
That would be the chair's interpretation as well, that it would be acceptable for you to vote. In fact, your expertise on this matter might be appreciated. So, any further questions? Councilman Bueller.
Thanks. Just for clarification, if we vote yes for this, and I think Mike brought up an excellent point tonight. Are we still able to retool this and move? How do we change this if we want to change what we're voting on tonight?
This is one of those ordinances that changing it now would delay quite a bit of the process, because it has to go back through the plan commission. So it's certainly within your purview. But if you chose to not approve this tonight, it would just have to go back through the plan commission with any recommendations from the council that you would like to see changed, and it would have to come back through that process.
Could I ask?
Follow up.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Danforth, what is your intention to agree to this tonight, or do you think this needs to be looked at further before we make?
Councilman Danforth, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, Bruce, I would say that tonight we go ahead with it, and then we take the time to look at the ordinance afterwards and see if something should be added or changed to it. I don't think there's a downside of approving it tonight and coming back at this, having the appropriate people look at it, probably have to go back through Plan Commission, Board of Adjustments, whomever, their Plan Commission, and have it come back at some point to us. But I think my point in bringing it up is we have had issues with that in the past. And as we make this and we start opening this up with the language that's in here, I think we need to reconsider where that whatever your term was, Matt, where it is and not allowed.
Right.
And I would go ahead, proceed as was intended tonight, with the plan that we need to take a look at it and just make sure if there's anything else that needs to be changed in it. If it does, let it come back around. We'll get it done.
Any further questions or comments from the council?
I do have.
Councilman Bueller.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there some sort of a time frame we'd be looking for? I mean, this doesn't go for 2-3 years and we run into trouble. Should we set some sort of a schedule for when we want to revisit this and come back with perhaps a different recommendation?
Attorney Roby, would you like to answer that? I'd be happy to do that, subject to the city manager's discretion. I guess we would maybe look for some input precisely as to what, I understand maybe the Sea Lake District would be one you'd want to exempt from that 300-foot rule. If that's the only recommendation, that could be done in pretty short order, but if there's something else that you're interested in taking a look at, I guess I'm not sure what kind of process that looks like.
No, I just don't want it to get lost. If this is a concern, do we address it soon, or do we just let it linger and until we have a problem again, or perhaps a problem down the road?
I'd just like to add, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Looking at those offset distances, that's actually a part of Title II. So that actually wouldn't need to go to the Plan Commission if the amendments that council is intending to look at or have staff look at and propose, that simply could be an amendment to Title II, which could come straight to the council.
Okay. City Manager Mack, would you like to say something?
I was just going to comment that we can include an update on where we're at in this process in our bi-weekly updates to you all, just so it stays fresh in everybody's mind. So that's how we'll communicate with you where it's at and when we're ready to bring it for your consideration.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion is to approve.
Mayor, we don't have a motion
Oh,
yet.
oh, sorry. Oh, that was just to accept the agenda. Sorry. We do need a motion to accept it. Thank you for calling me out. Councilman Paulson,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Tupper. Thank you very much. Now, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Item B, bless you, is approval of airline transportation system lease agreement with Skywest Airlines Incorporated. We need a motion. So, moved by Councilman Danforth, seconded by Councilman Bueller. And we will go to our city attorney, Matt Roby.
Thank you, Mayor. At the previous council meeting, the council approved a notice of intent to enter into this lease agreement with Skywest Airlines. The details, kind of the highlights of the lease, the term of the lease runs from July 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2023. As you should be aware, Skywest is flying what's known as the at-risk model, where they're not receiving EAS subsidies. And so there is a provision unique to this lease that does allow them the flexibility to exit the lease with 90 days notice, essentially, if they decide that they would like to do so. The other additional details, this is 306 square feet of exclusive space at $10 per square foot, and 3,555 square feet of shared space at $7 per square foot.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will open it up for council questions. Councilman Vilhauer.
A couple of questions. First of all, I assume that there's a provision that this automatically rolls over to the new terminal because hopefully we'll be in there before this lease is up. So you're nodding your head, Attorney Roby.
Yeah, there is at the time that we would move over to the new terminal, we would need to get a new layout as to what space they'll be leasing, so we would come forward with an addendum at that time.
Okay. And then also, I assume these rates are commensurate to what Denver Air Connections is also?
Identical.
Identical,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion is to approve this lease agreement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item C is approval of resolution number 21-31 for acceptance of infrastructure improvements in the Willow Creek Village Edition installed by Clausen Construction Incorporated and Carl V. Carlson on behalf of the developer Willow Creek Development Incorporated. Need a motion? Moved by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Bueller. We will go to our Assistant City Engineer, Justin Peterson, for this one.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff has been catching up on some older developments that haven't gone through the formal acceptance process. This development agreement for the Willow Creek Village Edition that actually expired in 2019. However, the developer completed these improvements in 2016. Just for reference, this is 19th Street on the west. The development here is outlined in red, and Willow Creek Drive is right here. The typical process is to bring the certificate of completion to council when the infrastructure is done. Then it starts a one-year warranty, and then a follow-up with the resolution of acceptance after the warranty period is done. For this development, the certificate of completion wasn't brought to council in 2016, so effectively there has been a 5-year warranty for the infrastructure. The resolution of acceptance before council tonight is formally accepting the infrastructure in Willow Creek Village for ownership and maintenance. And there is some uniqueness about this one. The area in, I guess, blue-green there, that includes acceptance of the sidewalk, roadway, pavement, curb and gutter, and all utilities within the Willow Creek Village Edition. the area in the purple along 2nd and 22nd. That includes acceptance of just storm and sanitary, and that's part of the Willow Creek Village 4th edition. And just to note, the roadway pavement and the sidewalks are in this area are part of a separate agreement, and that will be brought probably later this year. The pond in the middle is the pond inlets outlet structure to the east here. It's kind of highlighted in pink. That is private and will not be accepted by the city. And then just kind of a note that the developer has been part of this process and has reviewed all this information. If there's any questions, Marcy and I are available to answer.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this? Seeing none, we will close it and open for council questions. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I don't know how to phrase this, but going this far back into acceptance of developments does concern me as a little bit, because I think there's a lot of developments that were never accepted on behalf of the city. So if we're starting to accept some from 5, 6 years ago, we're getting to that point. Is that setting a dangerous precedent going forward if we didn't accept something, that if a developer comes to us saying, you didn't accept mine, I guess that's...
I think that's a legit question. Would you like to take it, city engineer or assistant city engineer?
I think there probably is potentially a limit. We wouldn't go back 10 years to accept something, but this one has been fairly active development. They have other additional developments coming up beyond this one, so I think this one makes sense in my mind, at least.
Councilman Tupper.
What took so long for the acceptance or requirement for acceptance? I mean, was it the developer? Was it on the city side? Both?
Well, I think it's maybe a little bit of both. Potentially the developer not necessarily understanding the process. I do believe there was a change in engineers about that time too. So there's probably a combination of things that happened. It's a little bit of speculation because I wasn't here, but.
Any further questions? Comments? Councilman Danforth.
We've got you're new here, Amanda's new here, we got a lot on the council here, but it is disturbing and concerning to think that we have a process that says we will go through and approve, and we don't. And then we're here 5 years later cleaning up things. That's very disturbing to me. It's either important and we do it, or it's not important and we take it off a requirement, which I think would be wrong. But I think this is what gets us into trouble at times when we're so far after the fact, and if we have an issue, then we're at battle with developers. We've been through this, I've been through it, trying to work out issues with developers in the past because things have just went so long. And whether a developer does their thing or not, ultimately, we're the ones that hold their hand. We own the process. And we've got to be the ones that hold their feet to the fire. But it's disturbing that and I understand that you weren't here, and I understand that a lot of people weren't here, but on a going forward basis, I would hope that we either make a decision this is important and we do it, or we take it off the books as a requirement, one or the other. Because we shouldn't be sitting here 5 years later and having this type of action. So, just a comment.
Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to reply to your comment, Mike, I if we could roll the clock back a few years or a couple years, I would agree with you completely. But I will say this, and for those carryover members in the council, that we have seen several of these come through from our Public Works Director, City Engineer Heath Von Eye, that is putting the process in place now that these projects are being approved on a regular basis. This, to me, is a catch-up one, but there is a process that, from my observation as a council member, is now being implemented because we have seen several of those come through before us within the last couple of years.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further comments? All right. With that said, the motion is to approve this resolution. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item D is first reading, so no motion necessary, of ordinance number 21-32, a zoning text amendment to chapter 24.05, general requirements and design standards of the revised ordinances of the city of Watertown. And with that, we will go back to our community development manager, Stacy Bungard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This proposed amendment is to the subdivision regulations, and it is to strike inconsistent language dealing with floodways, floodplains, and elevations on plats. We did do an amendment here some months back, and it was just noticed that there was one section that was in conflict with the intent of the new language that was adopted. So basically, this amendment would not require engineers and or surveyors to be showing the FEMA floodway or floodplain boundaries or elevations on the face of the plat, but instead they would make references and note for the properties within this special flood hazard area. We do believe we've consulted with FEMA on this, and we do believe that it could be more accurate to just have that note. And then as a plat is recorded and it's of record for a very long time in many cases, that if there was a change to the floodplain, which does happen occasionally, that someone would need to be looking that up based on that note, so they get the most current information. So really, it's a housekeeping item and combined with something that FEMA actually recommended. And the Plan Commission did unanimously recommend approval to the City Council back on July 8th. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Anyone else here who would like to testify on this item? Seeing none, we will close public testimony and open it up for questions from the council. Any questions or comments? All right, we will get another crack at that at the next council meeting. Moving on to item E, which is approval of amendment to TIF number 12, development agreement with Parkside Place LLC for a total amount of $104,000 for the city's obligations toward the Parkside Place downtown development project. Need a motion to approve? Moved by Councilman Vilhauer. Seconded by Councilman Paulson. We'll go back to our Assistant City Engineer for testimony on this.
Thank you, Mayor. Before Council tonight is an amendment to the development agreement for the Parkside Place project, which is highlighted here in yellow. This is City Hall, so it's right across the street. The agreement was put in place back in May 2020. And Parkside Place LLC is requesting additional funds for the actual cost of alleys, sidewalks, and utility services. And with that, I guess I'll open it to questions.
Thank you. Anyone else here who would like to testify on this item? Seeing none, we'll close it and open up for questions from the council. For any public watching this item received a thorough vetting at the Public Works Committee meeting earlier today. Any questions from the council? Comments? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Item F is the approval of professional services agreement for services associated with the Ice Arena project, project number 2116, with 292 Design Group in the amount of $15,500. We need a motion to approve. Moved by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Schutte. We'll go back to our Assistant City Engineer, Justin Peterson, for testimony.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a proposed agreement with 292 Design Group. It was there's a selection committee that reviewed proposals from a couple consultants, and ultimately 292 was recommended. The contract is an amount of $15,500, which is the contract would get us up, get the city up to a point where there's kind of preliminary drawings and an estimate, cost estimate for decision moving forward. I guess with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this item? Seeing none, we'll close it and open it up for questions from the council. Any questions? Councilman Danforth.
Will this include, for example, when we were at this stage with the wellness center, then the first step then was for a charrette that the architect did. Is that the process that's going to happen again here? Will they go through that process, or is it pretty well known what we want within that?
I will let Councilman Beeler answer that.
Thanks. You sure could have answered that yourself, Mayor. I'm sure I'll do the best I can. No, to answer your question right straight up, no, it does not. This would be, I think right now we're looking at a basic footprint, a basic design for ICE. And it would not be for multi-purpose functions at this time. And what we would do, what we're hoping to be able to do, is to put together some sort of a plan moving forward for options, some sort of plan for, you know, whatever other uses that we may deem valuable for this facility. And it may be none, but it's something that we will look at moving forward with user groups to see if some of those would be beneficial for us to move forward on. And we'll be looking at the CVB for some of that information as well with ROIs and some ideas, I think that's my thought. And Rita, anybody else, or Glenn, if you want to add to that. But to answer your question, no, we don't at this point in time, but we do have some idea of what we would like in a basic facility, and we do intend to visit, potentially visit other facilities to kind of, well, like we did, Mike, when we worked with the Wellness Center, to kind of find out what worked, what didn't work, what they should have done, what, you know, would work best for us.
Excuse me, take some leisure. I don't want to take anyone else's time, but I would just add to that answer. We have a design committee that had been approved when we brought forward this process. They were engaged. They actually came to us with an extensive list of things that a facility like this absolutely needs, a list of things that they would like, and things that if they could shoot the moon and write a blank check that they would like to add on. So they have done a lot of the legwork already, so we have some definition, and obviously we have our owner's representative who has worked on these projects before, as has the staff and the people who have been tightly engaged on this, have an idea of what we want. So we're definitely not starting from nowhere. This is just to get us to the point where we will find out how much this project is going to cost, and then we can make that next decision as to moving forward with it, and if so, moving forward with it in what capacity. Councilman Danforth.
Will this design that they come back with, initial concept design, be for the proposed location?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, at this time, yeah, that's the intention.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the agreement. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item G is approval of the professional services agreement for consulting services associated with the Ice Arena project, project number 2116, with Tegra Group Incorporated in the amount of $293,000. We will go back to, we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Bueller. We'll go back to our Assistant City Engineer, Justin Peterson.
This is a second agreement related to the Ice Arena. This one is for Tegra Group in the amount of $293,000, and it's for the management of the ice arena project, at least through the guaranteed maximum price point. And Dick Strasberg is here from Tiger Group, and if there's any questions, we'll field them.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Oh, Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. Would it be prudent to ask Dick Strasberg to maybe kind of give us a brief outline of what their services will entail?
I think that would be appropriate, but we'll do that in the question comment. But I'll just use my latitude and say we're in the question and comment period now. So, Mr. Strasberg, would you like to come up and answer that question? Please identify yourself.
Yeah, Dick Strasberg with the Tiger Group. Appreciate the opportunity to come here this evening. And so I think what we'd outlined in the proposal is going through the process, being basically an extension of Amanda's staff to carry this thing through initially, working through with the architect. It's about a 30-day effort for the initial design on it. And we'd be involved in that and managing that process. And I think, as I mentioned before, one of the goals we'd have during that time is to come up with what I call the base model. If you're buying a car, you can get a base model and then you can get extras. So let's establish what the base model is, and then also a list of what some extras would be. Just so we start to get some conceptual ideas on it, because some of these things, to make it multi-purpose, that's you can kind of go from A to Z on that. There's a lot of things you can add to these things, but they all have dollars on it, and just start getting some ballparks pricing on it, so we get an idea. Some of them will go away just simply because of the pricing. Other ones may be debated, but the goal is that we at least kind of outline it. So that initial step would culminate with getting pricing then. So then they'd price up the conceptual plan and bring you to a point where you can establish a budget. During that time, we'd conduct tours and look at some other facilities as well. Then we'd manage the design process, going through the schematic design, and also bring on a contractor, follow the state process for hiring a construction manager at risk, and then carrying it all the way through until we get pricing, and working with the contractor, getting pricing, and guiding the process all the way through until you get to the guaranteed maximum price. So that's kind of a quick overview. Lots of detail there, but that's an overview.
Dick, can you explain during the construction phase what your services are for that part of the project? So our services there can range from kind of continuing on and representing the city through that process, and working with the engineering department, and we can it can range from everything like we did on the wellness center, which was really sort of occasional services. You called when you had questions on it, and we kind of worked through a few sticky spots on it, and then I think it was a process where, in this case, we had Councilman Danforth willing to really step in, do a lot during the process, so we didn't have as big a role, but we're open to whatever role is needed there. We oftentimes are the ones that are working through all the details on it if there isn't somebody at the city that has the time on it, or if engineering needs assistance on it.
Thank you. Follow-up question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Dick, just so I think the public needs to understand how this can save our taxpayers money, this process, by using your services moving forward. How is it beneficial to use Tegra in this process?
I think it's fair to say that what we do, it isn't, we aren't rocket scientists. We aren't, detailed engineers that figure out how you engineer and design things, or, brain surgeons. It's really managing the process. And I think the thing the city benefits from is we've just done this a lot. This is the center of our wheelhouse. We've done it. I've done it personally now for 35 years, and we've been through the pitfalls of these projects and can, hopefully avoid problems to start with. But then also it gets into negotiating the fees and working through that process, as you just saw with the architect agreement. I think that was down roughly $100,000. Through the whole process. We always say this. If you don't see our fees disappear during the process, then we're doing something wrong. and it's in the contract. You can get rid of us whenever you wanted to. So that's so yeah. So we guide the process, and you really what you do is you benefit from our years of experience of avoiding mistakes and helping you learn from others.
Thank you. Any more follow-up?
No, thanks.
Councilman Vilhauer.
Just a comment. First of all, in the last 2-3 months that you've worked with the state, I have found you to be an invaluable resource for us to turn to. I think we'd really be floundering if we would not have turned to your services here a few months ago, and you've been very generous with your time and being able to meet with us as needed. I do have one question, or maybe you can clarify. The amount that we're approving, the $293,000, as I understand it, you took the fee that you charged for the wellness center a number of years ago, rolled it forward by a modest cost of living adjustment. Is how you arrived at your fee.
Yeah, we had 3%. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Comments? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the professional services agreement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Is there any old business? Any old business? Any new business? Any liaison member reports? Any announcements? Councilman Vilhauer.
Yes, once a year I got to get on my soapbox, and this year is no exception again. Just last week I had a constituent reach out to me expressing concern about the use of golf carts on South Lake Drive in particular, and primarily by young kids. I live out of Summerwood, and I've seen too many close accident or near misses out there with misuse of golf carts. So you're supposed to be a licensed driver to operate those golf carts to begin with. It's supposed to be a direct shot from residents to the golf course. That is not the case. Quite often I see kids joyriding around the block out there, and this was brought to the attention of our city manager and our police department, and I believe there was even a flyer or a brief letter drafted that would be going out or being passed out to the residents out there. City Manager Mack, do you have any additional comment on that?
No, that's correct. The police department is on it. It's an issue that they fully recognize is out there, and so they're stepping up efforts to not only patrol it but help mitigate it.
Okay, and I'm just saying, parents, please monitor your kids when they're on these golf carts, because they are not toys, especially on a city highway or streets.
Councilman Bueller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a liaison report, I guess, I would just like to let everyone know that we've been working in our Park and Rec meeting. We've been discussing this for some time of potentially using outsource for our mowing operations, weed control, those kind of things. I think it's difficult to get employees in some instances, and I just think that would allow us to free up more folks to do other things that we need to do in the community. I do see that this could be a big benefit to us, so we're currently looking at locations that would probably be the highest priority for us to outsource some of those activities, which could lead to outsourcing other activities as well in that department, as well as perhaps other departments. So just thought I'd let everybody know that is something we're pursuing.
Thank you. How close to a decision are you?
Well, the Park and Rec Department I think that is on their list of things to do, is to find areas that potentially could be outsourced. So we'll look at that, and then certainly we would have to look at what we feel the actual costs would be before we could, recommend that we do that or we don't do that. So that's sort of where we're at, but we are pushing that initiative forward. I think it's important. I think it'd be a good move for us.
Thank you very much. I'll just say I also received calls about the golf cart issues. I just want to remind everyone, please police yourself. That way we don't have to ruin it for everyone who actually might have a legitimate reason or just needs to go across the street to go play golf or something like that. So thank you for that. Seeing no more announcements, we do have a reason to go back into executive session. We were already there, and we are going back. But we will make this official and take a motion. We will not be taking action when we come back. So all those watching, you can turn off or go home, and we'll see you next time. So we do need a motion to go into executive session. Moved by Paulson, Councilman Paulson, seconded by Councilman Tupper. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Nay. Motion carried. Thank you very much.